Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort and the Gallery. Bar, book, and games. It's the place to be this football season. We're there every Monday. Stop out and see the show and hang out with the Sports Bash from the Fanatics Sportsbook. Hang out with Football at 4 every day right here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Today, Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's Geoff Mosher in the house today, and we got plenty of Eagles to talk about as we turn the page from Dallas week to a Super Bowl rematch. Geoff Mosher, what's going on, bud?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm always good. I'm always good talking to you. I feel like we always have good spirited football conversation here. And this Eagles team coming off the Cowboy win. It was Thursday night, so we didn't get to see them, but now we're starting to get into that mode for this Chiefs weekend. Let's get your thoughts, number one, on some of the things that has happened with this Jalen Carter thing. Are you at peace? Are you okay with how this is being handled by the team? Do you think this will linger? Do you think it's over?
I think Nick Sirianni is trying to do the right thing and keeping it in-house, but also I don't see why he has to be so protective and coddling and not be able to talk about it in a constructive manner. I don't think answering some of the questions the way they were asked to him yesterday or today would be throwing Jalen Carter under the bus. And it sets a little bit of a bad precedent that he says he doesn't talk about in-house stuff, but he actually does plenty of times. He'll tell you glowingly when he thinks a player has matured or when he thinks a player has done something well, even if you don't ask. He will give you behind the scenes on that, but he's saying he'll never talk behind the scenes. Well, no, what you're saying is you'll never talk about something behind the scenes when it's a negative. And you'll talk openly about accountability and how your team is built on that, but then you won't talk about it when someone's asking about a lapse in it. So I don't really love the way he's handled it. I'm not sitting here saying this is going to, shipwreck the entire season or this is a major faux pas on Nick Sirianni's point. I think I'm just trying to give you the most objective look at how I think this is going on as possible. As far as the league is concerned, someone asked me, I did a radio interview the other day, and someone asked me what I would do if I was commissioner. And I said that I know you're trying to make a strong statement about not having this, in sportsmanship, spitting on someone being reprehensible, but he was ejected for the game. And I said, I feel like that sounds like a punishment that fit the crime. And anything after that should probably just be a fine and a don't ever do it again kind of reaction. Or, a hefty fine and we're now watching you type of thing. And it sounds like that's basically what happened. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, listen, ultimately, I think this was one universal thing where I think all Eagles fans were like, look, this was reprehensible here. It was awful. A lot of people use a lot of harsh words to describe the young man. Then the Dak thing kind of entered another layer of it. But ultimately, it was just weird that the NFL basically came out and said, well, he did miss the game, so we're going to use that as a suspension, and you're going to pay the fine, $57,222. Now, the Eagles can do whatever they want. They could fine them, whatever amount of money they want, I guess, but we'll see. Hopefully, listen, the big thing here is you hope this kid learns his lesson and that this is the last time we're talking about Jalen Carter and some sort of thing that hurts his team.
Yeah, I think that is the big takeaway. I'm not convinced that it will be. It's not that I don't think anybody can change or zebras don't shed their stripes or anything like that. And Nick Sirianni is a good example of a guy who, at this time last year was still a little bit combative on the sideline. And, you could say he changed and his sideline demeanor last year really improved. But I could also say, because they were winning basically every game they played. What happens when you go through some adversity, right? So you're not going to win 80% of the games you play every year, even as good as the Eagles have been lately. So I would hope that it's over and we don't see it as much, but time will tell, Mike.
All right, Geoff, let's move on to the defense now. You've got a couple questions I want to get your take on. Za'DariusSmith is in, obviously, on Monday or Tuesday, yesterday. Vic Fangio, he didn't really talk about how they're going to use him or what he even knows about him. He said not too much. But do we think that Za'DariusSmith turns out to be a big factor in the Eagles' defense, or is just hey, he was available, let's see what he's got left in the tank?
He better. I mean, they didn't go out and get him for no reason or just to provide another body, not with the contract that he signed. Vic Fangio, as we've seen it, really would like to play a three-man edge rotation, and that's about it. He is not like Jim Schwartz. We have come to discover that he's not trying to play 8 or 9 or 10 different linemen in a single game. Which is funny because when Jim would do that, we would all talk about the benefits and the merits of fresh legs. And now that Vic doesn't do it and he has his own way of success, we all say, hey, when you have great players, you put them on the field. It's funny how that works. But obviously, with Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, they took the majority of the snaps against the Cowboys. They got Uche in there a little bit. And Patrick Johnson was really just up for special teams, although he did get in on the field a little bit. So I imagine that when Za'DariusSmith is ready and learns the defense and is ready to be a contributor, and I don't know that that's going to be, it might take a little bit of time, but he will be in that three-man edge rotation. And he does have a Brandon Graham-like versatility about him where he can move inside. He's actually bigger than Brandon Graham, so he can move inside. Vic Fangio acknowledged that yesterday and rush inside from the nickel. So they're going to use him. They signed him for a reason. I think the big question is, I'm trying to kind of digest it myself over the last 24 to 48 hours, Mike, is that it just has this team kind of making all these moves, trade for a running back, trade for or sign Za'DariusSmith. They won the game, trading for Bennett right in the middle of it just seemed like as soon as they felt like they had a deficiency, it was like boom, boom, boom. Let's get people in, let's get people out. You're seeing roster tangle. I mean, 1 minute Kenyon Green's on the 53, then he's on the practice squad, then he's waived, then he's back on the practice squad, then he's on the. There's a lot of roster maneuvering going on right now, and I feel like some of their bigger concerns are just in-house, like the injuries at tight end and losing Ben Fanzrumer and things like that, and I would have liked to have seen a couple of weeks of the edge rush to see what it was before it was like, let's just get this other body in here.
In retrospect, I don't know if you had a chance to really comb through it or watch the All-22 or, I know obviously Greg Cosell and you guys do a great job of all this, but in retrospect, was the pass rush a problem? I mean, there's no Jalen Carter, but, I saw some pass rush win rate stuff that had Josh Uche at the top of the list and Nolan Smith as one of the top 10 in football this past weekend. So was the pass rush an issue on Thursday night?
I think, it showed up. I mean, it showed up certainly on the last drive of the game. Dak had to hurry a couple of passes. Obviously, one got dropped by CeeDee Lamb, but there were still a couple of pressures in there that I thought worked well. I mean, the Cowboys scored 0 points in the second half. Am I correct in that?
They did not score a touchdown, correct, yes.
Right. Okay. I wasn't being sarcastic. I just really couldn't remember.
No. They scored the first three possessions in the first half and nothing in the second half.
Yeah. So I think that you can't do that unless you do get decent pass rush. Georgia pass rush. Uche, I thought played well. I didn't see as much from Nolan Smith, but I'm sure he had a couple. He did have a nice inside stunt where he beat the guard or the center actually. And got a rush in there. So, again, I didn't think it was so dismal and lacking in bodies that they had to immediately go out and get Za'DariusSmith. But, I'm not Howie, and listen, I'm not questioning him. I'm just saying that it seems like over the last few weeks, a lot of bodies just in and out and in and out and in and out. And I wonder, are they just so concerned? The state of their organization and the state of developing young talent. I mean, look at Jalen Hunt and Nolan Smith last year. At the beginning of the year, they weren't making an impact. By the end of the year, they were. So is there not that kind of faith that Ja'Cory and Bennett will eventually be good or any of the young pass rushers that were already on the team?
By the way, pass rush win rate, according to Pro Football Focus, Josh Uche was number 1, 43.8, and Nolan Smith was 32%, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in the NFL on Sunday. So according to that stat, if you like it, those guys were 2 of the top 10 pass rushers in the league on Sunday. But yet, the Eagles go out and get a veteran player, which, by the way, so they go out and a couple of years ago and get Robert Quinn. In your mind, is this way different from that?
Well, yes. I mean, I judge every move independently for what it is. And unfortunately, that year, the Eagles really, for being honest, didn't do a great vetting job on Robert Quinn. He had not a nice year the year before, but he was dealing with some injuries that year. I think some that were known and some that weren't. And by the time he got to the Eagles, I mean, we all saw it. He was not a guy who could make an impact.
Shot fighter.
Yeah, basically. But look, Mike, I mean, again, like to me, as we go into week 2 here, if Dallas Goedert, who's banged up, doesn't play, you're down Ben Van Sumeren, all right? You're down Johnny Wilson, who is a good blocker in your 11 personnel. When you like to go with 3 wide receivers and put Johnny Wilson as your third, what you do is you dictate the defense to come out and nickel, right? And then you run the ball with Johnny Wilson being much bigger and stronger than your average nickel corner because Johnny Wilson's 6'6", and he was a great blocker at Florida State. So that was an important part of what they did last year offensively in the run game. So now you're down those 2 guys. Now you may not have Goddard, and that puts Calcaterra in your number 1 tight end spot, and maybe Cam Latu here. They're talking about playing like a fullback tight end spot, but that's not. Is Cam Latu and Grant Calcaterra going to scare anybody? Absolutely not. Especially not the Chiefs defense. And then you got Landon Dickerson dealing with a back injury. So they're making all these moves, but to me, it's like you run the ball. That is your identity. Right now, your left guard's banged up. Your center didn't really play that well in game 1. You're missing 2 or 3 key components of your run blocking. That to me is more of a siren than your pass rush.
Okay, there's a lot there I definitely want to kind of get into because, one, I was going to ask you about last year they had, what was the guy's name? Kerry Blassingame was on the team in the playoffs. He was a fullback. Is there any thought to bring a fullback back? Like, how big a part of the offense was Van Sumeren actually going to be? I guess it's kind of unknown.
Yeah, well, listen, I've been saying this to you for quite a bit. I feel, and I'm pretty secure in this feeling, that there was a plan for Van Sumeren that was beyond just get out there and block. Which doesn't really matter. I mean, they have enough weapons, but I do think they wanted to use him, his great hands, a little bit as a versatile fullback. But just take the blocking part of it. They want to be able to run the ball out of 22 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and use Van Sumeren. He played it last year at times and did well. You know, there were a couple of blocks that we highlighted that sprung Saquon Barkley for some big runs, including a touchdown or 2. So they wanted that, and they worked all season to make him into a fullback, and now he's gone for the season, obviously with another injury. And you don't just pull fullbacks off the street all the time. So it was interesting to hear Kevin Patullo say yesterday, well, we have Cam Latu, who's basically been a tight end for his career. And then today, Latu comes to practice wearing number 38 instead of the tight end number that he was wearing before that. So it's almost like they're trying to advertise to everybody, hey, this guy's going to be used as a fullback. I watched every single one of Kylan Granson's snaps against the Cowboys. I believe he played 12. They used him interestingly. They used him as an H-back, kind of like off, almost on the fullback, a little bit of an offset tight end, a little bit of a detached tight end, and an inline tight end. So they tried with Van Sumeren out to use someone who's experienced like that because he played that with the Colts. But he is not a guy that you consider an expert blocker or is just going to step in right there and be an anchor in your run offense like you were hoping Van Sumeren could be whenever you were throwing the fullback on the field.
What do we know about Dickerson? You brought him up. He was practicing today, so I guess that's a pretty good sign. But I guess you're going to be holding your breath with him for a couple of weeks at least.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good sign. We all thought that he was going to be able to start and play in the season opener against Dallas, and then he did. And then, with the knee coming back from the meniscus, and then he limps off with a back injury. And the next thing you know, Brett Toth is in there. So I never doubt Landon Dickerson's ability to be ready and play in a game and be a warrior, and I really applaud it for him. But you cannot ignore the 2 knee surgeries now since the end of the Super Bowl and then throw in this back injury. He's a big guy. He's carrying a lot of weight, and I think that's problematic, and I question his ability to stay on the field. And I would say that the drop-off between Landon Dickerson and Brett Toth is pretty steep.
Yeah, big time. All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. Man, there's a lot you brought up to the table here in just the one answer, so we'll continue to
What I do, Mike.
We'll just continue to check off the stuff. One of the guys we didn't touch on, though, was Bigsby, Tank Bigsby. They make this trade a 5th and a 6th. So, man, does he fill the Shipley role? Does that role go to Dylan?
Listen, if you're trading 2 draft picks, and I get that a 5th and a 6th isn't, a whole lot of stock, but if you're trading 2 draft picks for a running back who is sunken down on another team's depth chart, right? 2 draft picks, then you've got some plans for that guy. You better, or else you should be fired, to be honest with you. But I don't think Howie's getting fired, and I don't think his plan was just to bring in Tank Bigsby as insurance. Or I've seen this all. Well, he returns kicks, and with the new dynamic kickoff rule, that's great. That is great, sure, because Will Shipley was a kick returner, and now he can do that too. But I have a hard time thinking that with the year that he had last year, which is pretty good, over 800 yards,
yeah,
he's not going to be a pretty significant part of the backup running back options and offense there. And then probably I can't see where A.J. Dillon sort of fits in now, but he's still on the 53. But that's what I'm talking about with all these moves. It's like you wake up and, all of a sudden the Eagles have made 3 different moves and waived 3 guys and added 3 guys. So,
all right, so they bring Mike Hilton in for a workout. We talked about that on Monday's show, but yesterday Vic Fangio said that they would prefer to keep Cooper DeJean at nickel. So I guess that kind of diffuses bringing in a guy like Hilton, right?
Well, I don't know, Mike, because, I really watched as Vic was answering that question. And he was asked that question in the summer. Would you move Cooper DeJean to the outside? And his answer was way more adamantly no. He's like, no, I need a really good nickel. That's where we want him. And when he was asked it yesterday, there was a pause. And then there was an And then there was we prefer to keep him in the nickel. And I thought prefer was doing a lot of work in that response. And I know he prefers to keep him in nickel. I know that the organization wants him to play nickel, but the organization also doesn't want every wide receiver each week, burning the outside corner opposite Quinyon Mitchell for 100 and something yards and being fortunate that the wide receiver doesn't drop 4 passes. So if they don't have an answer, and if Jacorian Bennett isn't that guy, and I think he'll still get the shot first to see if he's that guy, if Adoree Jackson isn't, then I think they have to strongly consider bringing in a veteran nickel, good, and Hilton has been, to move Cooper outside.
Well, he did say Adoree Jackson right now. Does that mean on Tuesday or Sunday?
Well, I think he's going to be the starter on Sunday.
Okay, because I agree with you that Jacorian Bennett, I think, will be there at some point, even if it's the second half of Sunday afternoon's game.
Yeah, like Vic's not an extremely patient guy, but he's also not knee-jerk, right? He does everything deliberately. So,
all right, well, let me ask you this question. I know it's Patrick Mahomes, but this isn't like the most explosive passing game in terms of weapons. If you struggle in a game with this wide receiving core, you might have to put some red flags up.
You certainly will. Especially, I believe, week 3 is Tampa Bay, is it not?
No, Rams and then Tampa.
Right, Ram. Well, to pick your poison as far as having a really good wide receiver duo, because both of those teams have them. I'm sure you saw the Emeka Egbuka highlights from Tampa Bay.
And it's why this game is very important. These are 2 games after that. These 2 teams, you struggled against Tampa, and the Rams desperately want some, they want to show everybody that they're right there with you, and they were there till the last minute in that game in January. You almost need to get this game. Do you feel that way?
I think it's important. Individually for Adoree Jackson, you don't have Rashee Rice to worry about. It looks like Xavier Worthy is going to be out with the dislocated shoulder. We're talking Marquise Brown, we're talking Tyquan Thornton and Juju Smith-Schuster. All right, if you can't hold them in check a little bit and do a much better job against them than you did against CeeDee Lamb, then you're trouble, because there's no one that we just talked about. And one thing I'll tell you, I had a conversation. I won't name the name just to protect him, but with someone who played defensive back in the NFL, and we were talking about Adoree Jackson's approach to CeeDee Lamb, and there were a couple of snaps there, especially on that over route where he got 26, where he could tell it wasn't just getting beat. It was like you didn't see the conviction in Adoree to get into CeeDee Lamb's hip pocket and close that cushion. It was 3rd and 2 when he gave him like 8 yards, and then CD turned it into a 26-yard gain because that's how far Dory was. So it's one thing if you just get beat on just getting beat, right? You're there, but you get beat. But it's another thing if you're playing with a lack of confidence, you will get eaten alive in this league.
I agree with that, and the one thing I thought that Bennett did a good job. There was 3 of 3 on targets at him, but only for 20 yards. He closed well and made the tackle. Fine, catch the ball, but don't give up yards after the catch.
Yeah. Yep. So this is, it's obviously something Vic is monitoring. He's not afraid to talk about it, and we'll see what kind of moves are made. I would think that if he's not playing well, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm talking about Adoree'. I wouldn't be surprised to see him move at halftime.
Okay, last one. What is this with Goddard? I mean, is there anything to read into this? Is there a possibility he doesn't play in the game on Sunday?
Well, I mean, look, when a guy doesn't practice on Wednesday, you get the sirens up a little bit. But you know that there are certain veterans, or as long as they make it out by Friday, then you feel better about it. With veterans, guys like Dallas who've been a while. If Dallas is not on the field tomorrow, and if he can't even do the Friday walkthrough, then you're going to know he's not going to play. And I mean, the answers to the test will be right there. And
that's Calcaterra.
Where he can't practice all week.
Calcaterra, and then we're talking about Granson maybe playing fullback, but he would have to go back to tight end.
And then I think you would see Latu probably elevated.
Okay.
I mean, you would see a couple of different approaches to blocking here. But you know what? The Chiefs did a pretty good job against Saquon, even with Goddard on the field. Now, that meant that the Eagles could open it up, and maybe that's what the Eagles will have to do to against the Chiefs, open it up. But we know that the Eagles like to at least start to establish the run and then set that up, but we'll see.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms, and, of course, Football at 4 right here on the Sports Bash. All right, buddy, good stuff today.
Thanks, Mike.